Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. And just like that, we're back with another amazing episode of the Her Voice Shines podcast. You already know this is one of my favorite places to be. I'm going to tell everybody these episodes, they tend to be more for me than they are for y'all, but I just kind of share it because I get to learn all these amazing stories, get to really connect with these women, and we do it in a very authentic way. And I really couldn't ask for a better place to be. But as you know, I'm your fabulous host, Shanasia Washington, streaming from the beautiful city of Houston, Texas. And today we have another amazing story for you today. I want to bring our guest to the stage so she can do the normal drill. Tell us her name, where she's streaming from, and just like that, we get that amazing story. Without any further waiting time, here's my very beautiful guest for today.
Hi, I'm Vicki Mixel, and I'm streaming from Denver, Colorado. And but I lived in LA for 30 years, and I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we're neighbors, Oklahoma and Texas.
Oklahoma and Texas. So that means that you're pretty close, Miss Vicki. Now, I want you to tell us, because I've already been talking to Miss Vicki backstage, and I know that she has layers to her story. So I want Miss Vicki to welcome us into her story and just give us a tidbit, and we'll go down the lane here later in the interview to pull some more things out.
Okay. When I was in 8th grade, I wanted to be a speaker. And I kept interrupting the teacher when he was talking about nutrition because he didn't know what he was talking about. So I kept interrupting him. And finally he said, if you be quiet, I'll give you 45 minutes rebuttal time. So the next week I talked all about nutrition and vitamin B and whole grains and everything. And this was 1968. So fast forward to 1981. And I was a teacher, but I really saw myself as a therapist. And I had enrolled in grad school, but I was really struggling with statistics. And I thought, if I don't pass statistics, I'm not going to make this future of mine happen. So I was very anxious. I was invited to a party, and I met a memory expert. And I told him about my plight with statistics. And he said, why don't you hire me and I'll teach you the memory program and that'll help you pass the test. So that week I hired him. He taught me this memory system. And I was teaching at the time. So immediately I learned it and started teaching kids. And within a week or 2 weeks, they were all doing well on vocabulary tests, spelling tests, their reading comprehension improved. I was remembering the names of all the students. And I asked the principal if he would hire me. And he said, every day you come in about this memory program, I think you should become a consultant for San Diego City Schools School District and end up teaching the memory system, not just to one class, but to the entire district. So it took about a year. I did a pilot program on my own time, my own money, and got a newspaper article. And the newspaper reporter came in and watched me teach 4 different classes, wrote an article. I had the article published in the newspaper, sent it to San Diego City Schools, got an appointment, and I got hired. So for 5 years, from 1983 to 1987, I was teaching 88. I was teaching memory training in 120 lessons a year. And what happened is my own abilities increased so much that everything I ever wanted to be, I felt I could become. So they lost their funding in 1988. I moved to New York in 1989, and I became an actress, a painter, a dancer, a writer, and then I ended up teaching memory training through the Learning Annex in New York for actors, a program called Getting Off Book in Minutes. I taught a career program, how to recreate and redesign your life. I called Passion Quest, and I was really doing great. And then my brother became very ill with a bipolar schizoaffective condition. And I felt it was really important for the family, for me to understand what was going on. Our mom had passed away. Our dad had passed away. And I really needed to be the voice for my brother. So I moved to LA, got my master's degree, but 6 months short of my master's degree, I started writing a book about memory training. And the first time I was in grad school, I was so excited about the memory program, I dropped out and started a business called Brain Sprouts. But then I wasn't as good at marketing my own programs, so I went back to being a teacher, and then the Learning Annex marketed my programs. But anyway, so now it's 1999. I've got 6 months left of grad school. I'm halfway through a book, and I got hit by a big rig truck. And it wasn't just a little hit. It was my car got hit and hit and hit, and I ended up brain injured. And I no longer had this incredible visual memory in multicolor and sound and everything. After 18 years of teaching memory training, I ended up brain injured. I couldn't dream in color anymore. I couldn't find my car when I was driving. I didn't know how I was going to finish graduate school. And so for a couple of weeks, all I could do was sleep and pray. And then I finally met a neuroscientist who was 85 years old. And I told him I'd gone to UCLA and none of the doctors could help me. And this was 1999, so they didn't believe the brain could regenerate. I knew it could because I was having my own successes, and clients were having successes, students were having successes, and I had even taught Alzheimer's people and they were having successes. So he said, you need your own memory course, but you're slow. So you need to go find some old people because they're slow and teach them your memory course. So in July of 2000, I think, it was in July of 2000, I found out that Los Angeles Unified School District had an older adult program on memory. So I called them up and I went, me, I can do this. And so I went in and the guy hired me. He said, we only have 2 classes right now. And that was perfect for me, just to teach 2 classes because I, hardly had a brain at the time. And within 3 months, it built up to 9 classes. So for 2.5 years, I taught older adults memory training, both regular seniors and Alzheimer's seniors. And then I went back to writing my book and ended up getting it published. It's called Love Remembers. This is me at 3 years old, and this is my grandma Ida. And it's the stories of the people that I worked with teaching memory training. And I also had insights into the illness as to why do some people get dementia and Alzheimer's and others don't. So that's in the book. And then I teach the whole memory program and I teach the whole Passion Quest program in the book. So I ended up finishing the book. I ended up graduating. And after about 5 from teaching the whole time, and then in 2003, I was well enough to go back to teaching. I went back to teaching English, and then I got my dream job, which was teaching acting. So I was part of Los Angeles Unified School District's theater arts program. And so I ended up teaching drama for 10 years before I retired. So my dream came true, and I was happy and excited, and I graduated with my master's with a 3.89, which I didn't even know. So regenerated my brain, got my wishes, and was pretty happy.
Let me tell you this, Miss Vicki. What a journey, right? That's a lot. Okay. And I think sometimes, because you live it, you don't realize it. That's a lot of different components. I mean, it was the teaching memory, then there was this transition of acting and dancing and all this colorful expression. Then there was the transition to essentially caregiving. Now there's transition to now I'm going back to school. A lot of life transition. So I just want to say to you, thank you for riding the waves of life. And you're, here in front of us today to share it. And I don't take it lightly that you're here. I want to go here quickly because when you said you transitioned to have to take care of your brother, who at that time was having, I think you said schizophrenia or some things that were going on mentally. You were still young then. Tell me about transitioning to that space, like what it did for you. I know you said that your mom and dad had at that time passed on. Tell us about that, because sometimes it's these everyday life shifts and we have to stop and, caregive, or we have to stop and, deal with some traumatic experience that we really found out really who we are. I want you to talk about that experience for us and just tell us through walking through that and having to care for your brother.
Well, it was interesting. He lived in Denver. I had moved to New York to act. It was actually 1991, and in Denver, he had gotten involved in an oil deal with our uncle. And our dad, before our dad put my brother in an oil deal, he checked it out. So my brother thought that our uncle had checked it out. It was right around 1987 when oil went under. It went from $40 a barrel to $2 a barrel. And my brother just thought my uncle was doing the same thing our dad did. Anyway, he lost all the money. He invested everything that was in a trust. So he lost my money, his money, everything. My uncle felt horrible about it. And within 3 days, my brother was thinking the TV was talking to him, thinking the radio was talking to him, absolutely sure that the CIA had moved in above him and was watching his every move. And I didn't realize the extent of what he was going through, but within a couple of months, we had talked about living closer together. So he moved to New York. He had a job, or a cousin of ours got him a job, and he just couldn't do it. And he came back. He was staying with me in my apartment in New York. He came back and he just broke down and cried. And I just embraced him, and he started shaking. He just couldn't stop shaking. So a friend came over and we were all talking together. And I said to my brother, "What do you want to do?" And he said, "My thoughts are out of control. I feel like I just want to jump off a building." And he said, "Do you mind if I go to the hospital?" So we all walked and went to the hospital, Roosevelt Hospital in New York. And my brother ended up getting the same psychiatrist as Robin Williams. And he asked me if it would be okay if he stayed. And I said, "I'll go get, the pajamas and toothbrush." And that was the first time that he was diagnosed with bipolar schizoaffective disorder. And it was really scary. I remember my legs buckling underneath me because we'd grown up normal. He seemed normal. This whole thing just kind of came upon very suddenly.
Very, very interesting. I mean, I'm definitely happy you were there, because everyone's not so fortunate, right? Sometimes people go through these very traumatic experiences and, have mind shifts and don't have anybody around. So just the fact that you were able to be there definitely is a blessing. And I'm happy that he was able to have you as he navigated that space. Now, as we kind of talk about this and transition into really what you do, the meat of this memory thing, because Ms. Vicki, I be feeling like I need to work on my memory like right now. It's so many things that go on through the day. And I'm like, where are my keys? I get to my car. Where's my phone? It's all these little different components of memory that tend to trip me up as I get busier. I want you to tell us just the top 3 things that you see kind of as you work as some good things to kind of fuel that mind and keep that memory intact?
Well, when you said as you get busier, you kind of gave away the key. You get busier, you start jumping and you're racing. So the number one thing with memory, especially with absent-mindedness, is paying attention to where you are in the present moment. So you just say, I'm grabbing my purse. Where's my purse? You want to make sure you have it in a specific spot, ideally. You want to make sure your keys are hanging on a little keychain, like somewhere in your kitchen or right before your front door. And you want to just kind of take a moment and say where I am in the here and now. I'm in my car. I have my purse. It's Saturday. It's 5:00 Central Time. And where am I on my way? So that's the first thing, is just to get really present. This particular memory system works with pictures. So if you can turn any piece of information into a picture and connect it with an action that's visual, unusual, and in motion, it helps for an outstanding recall. So if you wanted to remember somebody's name, make sure you say the name, make sure you hear it correctly. If someone's name is Mark and you call him Mike, then he'll correct you and say Mark. But if you hear the word Mark, what picture do you see? Do you see a magic marker? And then you want to look at their face for an outstanding characteristic on the face. Let's say that Mark has a mustache, so maybe you could draw on his mustache, or his little marks are coming out of his mustache. Or if the guy's name is Mike, you can imagine microphone. So maybe he's got a little microphone growing out of a beard. If you want to remember a particular day that you have a meeting on Sunday, you could see a big sun, and then you could see your meeting place, and then imagine the clock at the time that you're supposed to meet. So you could see the sun, let's say, hugging the clock, and the clock is eating at your favorite restaurant. So that's just kind of a snippet in how to remember pictures, present time, and then remembering visual, unusual, and motion.
I love it because it definitely piqued my interest when I looked at the information because my grandfather, he'll be 80 here in October, but at the beginning of the year, he had a stroke. And of course, we had a process to do basically for recovery. And we did have to go through speech and occupational and physical therapy as a part of his treatment plan. And what really kind of sparked me was like the speech therapy part and how to use a series of pictures and different things to really jog his memory. So for him to be an elderly man, still has some issues with speech and things of that sort, to see his memory kind of rebound, and, we drive in the car and something and he'll remember something from, when I was a kid, and we'll talk about it. I mean, it just really makes me think about the power of the mind. So that was kind of like even though I've seen it, with me and in studying, I, was a biology major, but seeing it real time and seeing somebody, who's older actually have these parts of their brain that recovers. I mean, it's nothing short of amazing. Now, Ms. Vicki, I know that you've worked with all types of people in terms of memory and what you do. You've been an expert in this field, working with children and even adults. I really want you to give us some of those powerful stories, maybe a top 2 that you really remember about kind of the power of memory, and really kind of even like in that testimonial space where you can say, these are my clients, here are the great results they had as a result of working on their memory.
Well, the first client was years ago when basically 1987. And I had my first client, which was IBM. And I met with a manager named Joe Geiger. He was the youngest manager ever hired because he was just so bright, so smart, such a good manager. And he hired me to teach the program on how to remember people's names. And after I taught it, we were talking about what else I could do for them. And then Joe shared with me, this was, 1987. He shared with me that he just wasn't happy. He wanted to transition. And I think he was going through divorce. So I said, well, let's just see the end result of what you want to create. We literally did this over breakfast. And I said, well, what do you want? And he said, I think I want to just be an investment banker. And I said, how do you see that happening? And he said, well, I have some friends that are investment bankers. I can just talk to them and see if they'd let me start out in sales. And I said, well, let's see the end result of that. How would you see it? And he said, I guess seeing my name on the door of the office. And then I said, how much do you want to make? He said, $250,000. So I said, well, how would you see the end result of that? And he said, well, I guess on my taxes, I would see my taxes showing that I had made $250,000. And then I said, what else? And he said, maybe another girlfriend, a new girlfriend. And then he just blushed. So I didn't really ask him what picture he was seeing for that. And a new house, I think a beach house. He was seeing a beach house and one other thing. 3 weeks later, I called the office, and literally this took not even an hour, literally over breakfast. And I called the office because I wanted Joe to bring me back to teach memory training again to a different group. And they said, oh, Joe's no longer with us. I got his number and called him. He said, yeah, I'm an investment banker. And I looked on LinkedIn and got his number and contact and talked to him a little over a year ago. And he's still an investment banker. And he's made so much money that he bought his beach home and he bought his nonprofit. So this is a beautiful example of memory pictures having such a power of directing the mind to create anything you want. So I think that still stands out in my mind. And then I have another beautiful story where I was in New York. I was teaching the memory system to upper level management and insurance. And one gentleman named John said, I really have a problem with presentation skills. I'd like to hire you to help me so I'm not so scared to speak in front of a group, especially when the lights are on and I can't see the audience. So he paid me $1,000 for 10 lessons. And after 6 lessons, he said, I've got what I need. I don't need to complete it. And I said, well, let me give you back your money. He said, no, I've got my money's worth. So he worked for a couple of years, kept in touch with me, told me how much he was enjoying speaking and being comfortable in front of the audience. And then I got a letter from him about 3 years later. It turned out that he had fallen on the ice, cut his head open, ended up with a brain injury. He left his business. He and his wife moved to Washington. He was at the University of Washington in not a rehab facility, but in a rehab program with other people with brain injuries. He ended up teaching them the memory system that I had taught them, and everybody was improving. So he wrote me a letter and he said, not only did you help me with presentation skills and becoming a savvy speaker and comfortable, whether I had people I could see or lights, but now you helped me regenerate my brain and heal my brain from a terrible injury. And not only was I able to help myself, but I was able to help all the other people that were in my group. So that really, really warms my heart.
Oh my God, that's actually so powerful. Like, I'm going to have to get your book so I can read really some more into the space of remembering. And I know it brings in love because it's something for me that piques my interest. Like, I know I'm a podcast host, so I'm still like a nerdy kid that likes to read books.
This is my Bible. I mean, It's literally 26 years of all my research and practice of teaching the memory program. It took me 10 years to write it. The second book only took a year, but this took 10 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it shows those strides, right? And then I'm pretty sure that when you sit down to write the book, you're like, oh, my goodness, I can't believe that I've done all this research. Like, we're really sitting here amongst an expert as it relates to memory. And I'm honored that you're here. Now, I want to make sure, Ms. Vicki, that we touch on this because this is something that we chatted about. You saved your brother from COVID. And I want you to talk about that. I know that you do some work, that you did some work around your process in that. Can you talk to us about that briefly so that we make sure we capture that here?
Yeah, so my brother was sick, with bipolar condition. He was on meds for about 26 years, still living in New York in his apartment. I would visit, I lived in New York, then I left for California, lived there for a long time. And then when I retired, I moved to Oregon for a short time. So I had just seen him in February, and in April we were talking on the phone, and he said he was feeling a little weak, and so I suggested that he might be dehydrated and to go to the hospital and get an IV of a saline solution. So he said he would. I waited with him on the phone. The ambulance came, and he said, I'll call you tomorrow when I'm back home. Well, the phone didn't ring. I called him, got the voicemail. Phone didn't ring again. I finally, 2 days later, I called the hospital, and they said, oh, we have your brother here. He started decompensating. We caught him fast enough. We're waiting for a room. I'll have the doctor call you. So I think it was the next morning I got a call, and it said, the phone rang. It was like, hello, is this Vicki Mixel? Yes. This is Dr. Sanchez. We have your brother. He's in hospice. He's got COVID-19, and we think he's got 5 days to live. I was like, I want to be there. I want to see him. No, it's too dangerous. No, but it's just us. We don't have parents. We don't have any close family. We have 300 people dying a day. We don't want you to travel. And then she was on a video camera. She said, look, we'll give your brother a phone. You can keep him company and watch him die over the phone. And I said, no, I need to see him. So I took a walk on the beach. I called them back and I said, look, I understand the risks, but it's just us. I really need to be there. So I flew to New York, and that was when nobody was flying. And it was really eerie walking through JFK and just nobody being there. And got to his apartment, and that hit me, that here he's down the street fighting for his life in an overcrowded hospital where they had 300 people dying a day. So I called them in the morning. I said, I'm here. And they said, okay, come on down. You'll have 15 minutes to meet with him. I had to suit up and put on a double mask and a double gown and goggles. And when I got in there, I said, hey, Gary, it's me. And he goes, who are you? I said, it's your sister. He goes, you're not my sister. So I took a risk. I put the mask down. He went, Vicki, you're here. So I said, yes, I love you more than anybody. We'll get through this. And then he took my hand and he said, listen, I need you to get me the nutrition to help my immune system fight the virus. And so we knew a Tim Binder, who I'd kept in touch with for 50 years. And after I left my 15-minute session with my brother that day, I went back to his apartment, called Dr. Binder. He's just a genius. And he'd already had a protocol ready for COVID. So he told me about 12 different nutrients to get. And I went to 3 different stores and got them, called the doctors and said, will you approve this list? And they said, we'll only approve 4 out of the 12 things that you have. So I just snuck them in my bra and took them in. And then I remembered there was this nutrition drink called Kate Farms, Kate, Kate Farms. that people with ALS drink and are still alive. So I was able to order the Kate Farms drinks and went in. And when my brother drank the Kate Farm and took the nutrients, he made a Popeye sign. And I thought, we're okay. So it was really my commitment. I said, I'm going to be here whether I take him home or I take him in a body bag. My advocacy for him, because every day he would call me and say, they're mixing up my food. I need more protein. Can you bring me this and that? So I just dedicated myself, was completely committed. And so with advocacy, love, and commitment, miracles happened. And on the 28th day, he was able to breathe. And I went there every single day. And then after 10 days, they wouldn't let me see him anymore because they felt like he was getting better, and they took him out of hospice. So then I called Dr. Binder, what do I do? And he said, put the nutrients in the drinks and then take the drinks and the food that you're getting him, the additional food you're getting him, and take it up. So sometimes I had to wait as long as an hour. But it was really the hospital, me, and his own mind. He told me later that he realized he had to use his mind to fight for his own life. And so after a month, I got him into rehab. I went home to Oregon. I got my kitty. And then a month later, the cat and I came back and got him out of rehab and took him home.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. The first thing is I love is that power of the mind. It definitely can shift things, right? And I was telling you about some things earlier. I think I had a really, really big mind shift like in June of this year. And I'll talk more about it with you, but I really had a really, really big mind shift. And I can't really put into words the things that have happened between June and today. I said it'll be a part of my next book, which is why I haven't talked about it as much on the podcast as I probably could. But the power of the mind is something that's very, very powerful. And the second thing that stood out, Ms. Vicki, was advocacy. Oof. It's a big thing, especially in the medical space. And I tell people all the time, you are your own best advocate. I know that they have the degrees and they have the, lots of times experience, and we're not, negating that, or we're not coming against that. However, but for you, it's very important that you be your own advocate, speak up and say, these are some things that are of my concern, and present that to them. So I'm so happy that you raised that. But Ms. Vicki, before we get out of here, I know that you have a number of different websites and connection points. I want to make sure that our audience gets that. I want you to give us the website for Brain Sprout, perhaps even your social media. I think there is a website for the book. Just whatever you have for connection points, where we can get the book, where we can reach out to you, please provide that now so that we can have that in our podcast notes.
Oh, okay, great. So I'd love everybody who's listening to go to loveremembers.com. That's where I have a little 3-minute video on this book, Love Remembers. You can get it on Amazon too, Love Remembers by Vicki Mixel. It turns out there's now 3 Love Remembers, so it's Vicki Mixel. If you go to my main website, it's Brain Sprouts plural, Brain Sprouts Memory, all one word, brainsproutsmemory.com. Please go on there and type in your name. You can get a free tip sheet on how to remember people's names. You can get on my calendar link and get a free half-hour call. We can talk about anything that you want to talk about. And then for my book on saving my brother's life, it's called A Sister's Love. And that website is savingbrotherfromcovid.com. So it tells a little bit about that story, and that can be also purchased on Amazon.com.
I love it. What beautiful and powerful resources that you have provided this community, Ms. Vicki, and I want to thank you. This is the part of the show where I cue over to my beautiful, beautiful guests for their final words. I tell them, if someone skims across this and they see nothing but this, we want you to give us some final parting words, and also something that really captures the essence of Vicki Mixel. I'm going to cue over to you for final thoughts.
what's in your heart, your feelings in your heart is what to act on. And then take your most powerful vision of what you see for yourself and hold true to that vision. Really, really hold true to that vision of your best self. And then just ask God, ask yourself, draw a picture of it, see the end result of it, write 5 action steps to support it. And you can bring it forth. You can bring it forth. Don't give up. Really don't give up.
I love it. Miss Vicki, let me tell you this. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for
Oh,
coming.
it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming in your purest self, and thank you for sharing these great things with us. And I want to tell everyone who's out here listening today, I always tell you to let your voice shine, because transformative things happen when you do. I will never leave this place without saying I love you. And I'll be back in really no time with another amazing woman on the Her Voice Shines podcast. Thank you.